She's looking pretty good too, isn't she?
So nice to be seen.
It's nice to see you too. The word welcome is such a simple word, such a common word. We see it on floor mats in front of doors. We see it on plaques in houses we visit. When you arrive in Orlando and go to Disney, they welcome you to the Magic Kingdom. We began our worship service with words of welcome. When you go into a restaurant, a maitre d' will be there to welcome you and greet you. If you shop at the Sam's Club on Broad Street, you will hear him. Welcome to Sam's. Enjoy your shopping. You've heard him. It's such a simple word. It is a compound of two other words in English. One is well, and it means wellness or well-being or even wealth. The other is come or comer, one who is received. In essence, we are saying to the person we welcome, be well in your arrival. Be blessed in the goodness of this place. We have a welcome team here at Patterson Avenue Baptist. In between worship and Sunday school, they stand there and they greet folks. In fact, they're there even before Sunday school. Every morning, I look forward to coming in the door so I can see Hilda and get a hug and have a bulletin and see her smile. Welcome implies gladness, joy, delight, happiness, warmth. And we all have stories of some experience where we felt welcomed into a place. The folks in the Near East have taken the art of welcome to a new level. When I was in the city of Damascus, shopping in the souk, which is their word for a mall, all of the stores were there. I went into one shop, and you've seen me serve communion from this brass communion plate. I bought this in that particular shop from Ammar, a Muslim individual who wasn't selling the Lord's Supper on a plate for any other reason than to make a few bucks from Western travelers like myself. I was traveling with two of the women who were in our group, and we went in and we struck up a conversation with Ammar, and he was so welcoming. He invited us to come to his house that evening for dinner. Now, we had just arrived in the Middle East. We were a little nervous. We had heard all of the horror stories about how dangerous a place it could be. We talked to the one who was leading our tour. He encouraged us to go. And when we arrived at his house by taxi, which is a whole nother story, we experienced such warmth. He had invited his mom over, his sister over. All of the immediate neighbors in the building where they lived were invited over. They filled the house with food. We had our pick of anything and everything that we could possibly eat. We stayed and talked about religion and politics, about God. And then as the evening was drawing to a close, they invited us for a ride, and they took us outside the city, up on the mountain that overlooked the city. And we were able to see the beauty of it from a distance with all of the bright lights. We had received welcome, and we felt almost at home. To provide welcome takes some thought and preparation. It takes some intention and discipline. Sometimes it can be as little as offering someone a chair or a drink or a thoughtful question to begin discussion. And when it is done right, it can wipe away all feelings of strangeness or awkwardness. You can make, with simple words and gestures, someone feel like an honored guest in your home. But then there is also the feeling of unwelcomed that destroys all warmth and creates so many barriers. In a prior church, I saw a couple standing before worship in the pew area, looking in a certain direction with disdain on their face. Before the service began, I went over to them and I said, "What's the matter?" and they pointed over to where some visitors were seated and said to me, "They're sitting in our pew." Don't you know that just warms the heart of God? I think I've told you about the organist in a former church who, on a day when we had had 2 young families from our neighborhood that had come after Gina and I had invited them on several occasions, they came to worship. Right before worship, I met with the deacons because there was a tragedy that had occurred in one of the families, and we were discussing how we would respond to provide relief to this family, to this lady who was in need. We were a few minutes late coming into worship service, about 11:03. I sat down in the chair behind the pulpit and I nodded in her direction so she could chime the hour. She said, standing up from behind the organ, "We begin worship here at 11 o'clock. I've already chimed the hour. You're late." Do you think those 2 families ever came back? All feelings of welcome in that moment had been destroyed. Today's text focuses on the idea of welcome. Jesus says, "Whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me." Now, who is he speaking to? In that moment, he's speaking to the 12. He is speaking to the disciples whom he had sent out on mission. He sent them out into the world to be welcomers for the kingdom of God. When he speaks those words and we read them today, it is not simply to the 12, but it's to all of us. They were sent. And who would welcome them as they were sent? Whoever did would be welcoming the Father who had sent him. For Jesus had sent his disciples then and now into the world as his ambassadors. They were welcomers in going, not just by waiting. That's a lesson that every church today needs to remember. Because it is one thing and good and appropriate and necessary that we have smiling faces like Hilda and others to greet people when they come in the door, but it is quite another thing that we be the smiling faces that greet people when we are at work or in our neighborhoods, when we see them in the grocery store or the gym, that we be the kind of welcoming presence that draws people to us and to the love of Christ that abides in us. Just this past week, I had a young woman come up to me at the gym. She knows I'm a pastor. She said, "Are you staying to work out longer? I would like to work out with you." Now, my ego said, hey, she wants to work out with me. But I knew better. The ego went away quickly. She's getting ready to move. Her husband's a physician, she's a nurse. And she wanted to know how I dealt with the people that I've seen die during my ministry as a pastor, because she had seen several as a young woman working on a floor as a nurse. And in that moment, I was able to share with her the grief and sorrow that I and many of us were feeling because of the passing of Buddy Nicely. We bring God's welcome with us and we go. And when we do, people are drawn to us. We don't wait for people to come to the building. We go to where they're at. And when they come to the property, we go outside and meet them. Tomorrow night between 5:30 and 8:30. We encourage you to be here. We are people who are called to go. We are on God's mission with God. We are not simply trying to attract people to come here. We are trying to get us out of here to engage the world. Jesus sends you to be a welcoming presence. He goes on and says, "Whoever welcomes a prophet in the name of a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and whoever welcomes a righteous person in the name of a righteous person will receive the reward of the righteous." Jesus talks about reward. But the point is not that we are rewarded for going. It's about the reward that the world receives as we go. Have you ever felt loved? Isn't that a reward in and of itself? After the service for Buddy this past week, Lila called me. I hope she doesn't mind me sharing. She was so moved by some of the response that she got as she was at that service. One person came up and grabbed her by the hand and said, "I just love you." Now, who was the one who was rewarded? Certainly the woman there was rewarded by Lila's presence, but I would bet that if you had to put it on a scale, Lila was more blessed because she went and found love. It was an incredibly moving experience for us who were able to attend the service. There was such passion, such exuberance, such demonstrative expressions of love and energy. The kinds of things that we would tend to hold back, the folks at the Virginia home did not. They verbally expressed their love and their tears, their kindness. I stood next to one lady as they showed slides, and there was a slide of her and Buddy that appeared on the screen, and she screamed out, "He is my best friend." She looked over at me. "He always made me smile. I just love Buddy." And I reached down and put my hand on her shoulder. I said, "I love Buddy too, and I'll miss him too." There was such warmth and exuberance and energy and passion. It taught me a thing or two about how we should worship. The energy and the smiles, maybe we don't have to do it exactly like that, but at least wake up every now and again. Express some passion and energy and love. This is not a message about being blessed for going. It is a message about being a blessing as we go and being a blessing for the sake of the kingdom of God. Let me ask you, in the 30 or so years that we have been involved in ministry with the Virginia home, who has been blessed more? Has it been the members of our congregation, or has it been the folks at the Virginia home? We've been blessed. For 30 years since Art Graham started the ministry, we've had folks go to lead services. We've had folks gather together to come to worship here. We have welcomed Keith and Joan and John and Buddy and others. We have been blessed as we go. We have been blessed to be a welcome. God has blessed us by the people that we have welcomed into our lives. God has blessed me by allowing me to experience the love and warmth of this congregation and the occasional kiss of Gene Jones. Why do we extend the message of grace? Why do we want to go and make connections? Why do we want to welcome people as we go? Why do we want to be a welcoming community of faith? It's not so we can get people to join and collect tithes and offerings so we can pay the bills. It's not so we can build up the numbers so that we feel better about ourselves. It's not to maintain or advance the institution. We welcome to be blessed so that people can experience the blessings of God's love among us. We welcome so that this little baby that you're paying attention to, and you should, will grow up knowing that he is a part of a community of faith that is filled with warmth and love and embrace. That's what Jesus goes on and talks about. He says, "And whoever gives a cup of cold water to one of these little ones in the name of a disciple, I tell you, none of these will lose the reward." I love that picture of cold water. On that same trip when I was traveling in the Middle East, we were actually in Israel. And as we were traveling along a dusty road, going from an archaeological dig to another site, the bus broke down that we were on. We all were outside the bus in this desert weather, hot and tired and frustrated. There was a Palestinian man who had passed by, saw our plight, and he went on ahead and got cases of water and brought them to us. He wouldn't accept money from us. He just wanted to be kind. He couldn't even speak our language. He just wanted to be kind. He wanted us to feel welcome. We welcomed him and the bottles of water, and we were blessed. A cup of cold water is the purest gift that we can give someone because it meets the most basic of essential needs physically. What is the most basic need that you experience today? It is the need to feel love, embrace, and welcome. This is the last time I'm going to tell this story because it always chokes me up to share it. When we as a family went a couple weeks ago to the hospital to visit Buddy, I told him prior to that, I said to Buddy, I'm going to miss a day or two because my son is getting ready to graduate. And Buddy had looked up to me and he grabbed my hand and he said, I sure wish I could go to Michael's graduation. And when our family went to visit Buddy a couple weeks ago, Louise was there. Bootsy was there. We sat with him and we visited. Buddy really wasn't conscious at the time. Michelle had a hard time handling it. She kept stepping out, crying, coming back. That's okay. Michael sat there quietly, stoically, taking it all in. And then as we were getting ready to leave, he said, wait a minute, Dad. He went over to Buddy, leaned over and embraced him and said, I love you too, Buddy. What was Buddy's essential need? To be loved, embraced, and extended grace. And Michael gave that to him, but Michael gave it to him because Buddy had met one of his essential needs. Buddy had expressed to him the desire to be at his graduation, to show his support. Michael gave back to Buddy the love that he had received. It was a blessing for both and for many others. And that's the way it is for us. Have you experienced the welcome and embrace, the love and the grace of Jesus Christ? Have you experienced that? If you have, then go and share that embrace with someone else. And as you do, the whole world will be changed in the process. What's the number? 85. I invite you to grab your hymn books. We'll stand and sing together hymn number 285. If there's a decision that you would make in response to whatever God may have said to you, and it needs to be a public response, I stand ready to greet you and pray with you. Otherwise, let's just stand and sing with full